born and raised in Michigan, moved to Delaware, lived at a few different places. But one of my pastors, who was part of my Baptist church, is actually in the room. My father's here. My mom and dad are visiting down from Delaware, and he does have a tendency to kind of go over the time limit. I'll do my best not to do that today. But cool. Go back. Yeah, so next slide. I like to start. This is a verse I really try to live by. Thought it would work great here. Don't just pretend that you love others, really love them. That's why I'm here. I want to help folks. I want to help them see some of these really good, sound financial principles. Next slide, Latron. So what's the problem? What's going on with retirement, and what's the deal? Go ahead, next one. And rather than click through, like I have some slides, Latron, where like the slide has like a few different points. Just do the whole thing so I don't have to keep, like that. So the average American says that they need $1.27 million to retire comfortably. And yet the average American has only $233,000 in their accounts at retirement. And again, so I have a sign-up sheet. I have all of this information. You guys can have my presentation. You can see this one is sourced. It was a CNBC article that actually they are citing a study that my company, Northwestern Mutual, did just last year. So this is up to the minute information. Actually, I think it was earlier this year the study happened. So yeah, if you're online, you'll see my info at the end. You can email me. I'll get you this presentation. Also, a lot of the stuff in the presentation are just screenshots of marketing material and PDFs that we have available for the public. So I can actually give you those sources too if you want those as well. But this is the problem. People are retiring thinking they need X amount of dollars and they don't have anywhere near that amount of money. And so, what do we do? Next slide, Latron. So these are the biggest risks. Again, this is one of those handouts. I can just send you this handout if you want it. It's a great PDF. There's other information involved. But the biggest risk to our retirement are one, longevity. Are we going to outlive our money? That's what most people are worried about. Market volatility. What's going on with the market right now with inflation? The last few years have been up and been down. Inflation and taxes, healthcare. That's the biggest concern of the people that are retired that we currently work with on my team or are approaching retirement. They are worried about their healthcare costs. Long-term care. Are we going to need a skilled nurse to come into our house? Are we going to need to go into a nursing home? Assisted care living. That long-term care problem, which some people lump it with the healthcare, is also one of the biggest risks to retirement. And then legacy. Do we want to leave money to the kids? Do we want to leave the house to the kids? Do we even own a house? What does that legacy look like once we're gone to our family? Next slide, Latron. Again, this is tough to see on such a small screen, but the power of compounding. I'm going to back up a little bit here. Sorry if you're online and can't see me. To accumulate $1 million by age 65. All right. Again, most people think 1.27 million bucks is what they need. For a long time, $1 million has kind of been that golden number that people think I need $1 million to retire comfortably and pay me and my spouse potentially 15 to 30 years in retirement. This is amazing, and it shows how important time is and how much more valuable it is than actually money, because we're all given the same allotment by God. We all have 24 hours in a day, and money comes and goes. But that far left column, at age 25, if you start saving, you only need to save $381 a month to have $1 million by age 65. And you can see in the dark blue, if you start at age 25, you only need to invest $182,000 and you'll have $1 million after 40 years. If you wait until you're 45, you can see that third column, you need to invest $1,900 a month, and overall that will cost you $460,000 to get to $1 million by 65. You'll still double your money. You'll have $539,000 of return, but you can see it is way above and beyond, even double the amount if you started saving earlier. So we can't go back in time. No one's ever going to be younger than you are today. So start today if you haven't started yet. Okay, that's the key point of this slide. Next slide, please, Latron. Does anybody know who that is? A lot of people, yeah, especially the Christian community, know Dave Ramsey. He's a popular guy. He's a good financial planner. Little side note, he's worth $200 million, so business is good. All right, next slide. He preaches the 7 baby steps, okay? Step 1 is save $1,000 for your emergency fund. Step 2, pay all your debt down. Step 3, get that emergency fund up to 3 to 6 months of your expenses, all right? And then we invest 15% of our household income in retirement. Step 5, stay for your child's college fund. Step 6, pay off your home early. And step 7, build wealth and give, okay? Look at step 4. That's an interesting one to me. Invest 15% of your household income in retirement. I don't want to show of hands, but I'm curious, whoever's watching online as well as in person, how many people are saving 15%? Because here's a wild, crazy stat that most people don't realize. A lot of people think, wow, $1 million is this astronomical number. I need to make X amount of dollars over the course of my career to even get to that number. If you are 25 years old and you make $50,000 a year, and you never get a raise for your entire career, with the exception of inflation, about 2% annually, okay? So $50,000, which is very much a blue-collar, salary in America, but you start saving 15% at age 25, you'll have $1 million by age 65. It does not take a lot, it just takes consistency, and if you have the time, that helps out too. So we'll talk about this guy a little bit more in the future, but obviously everyone, I'm assuming a lot of people here know who Ramsey is. Next slide, Latron. And he's got some good stuff. Again, you can just pop up. Yeah. So what's the solution to the problem that we're facing in America with retirement and being short on money? I like this quote, prior preparation prevents poor performance. I was a basketball player growing up. Coaches always said these things to me. This quote is attributed to a few different people online, so I'm going to leave that blank and not give anybody the credit for it. But next slide. Sorry, we're in a church. I know this guy has his shirt off. He does look pretty good for a 58-year-old man, though. So I played basketball, like I said, and then I became a strength coach for a while, and I trained a lot of basketball players. This was my mentor in that business, and he said the basics are the basics because they're the basics. The man's name is Charles Pollock, and I found when I changed careers and started doing this financial advisement that principle exists here too, that if we can get the basics down in someone's health, you get enough sleep, you get your water, you move your body, you reduce your stress or you keep your stress to a minimum, chances are you're going to get to your goal or at least really, really close to your goal. The same things apply to finances. Just get the basics down and you'll probably be close enough to your goal that you'll be like, I'm good here. I like where I'm at. So next slide. So what are the basics of financial planning and retirement planning? Keep on going. So this is what I use for financial planning. You can see that there is, and I know we're talking retirement planning, and you can see on the upper blue part, it's the offensive stuff, the fun stuff, the wealth accumulation, the wealth management, the investments. You can see retirement savings is right there. But this pyramid would crumble if there wasn't a defensive component to it. Now there are things that we can control in the defensive side of financial planning, and there are things that are uncontrollable, that we just can't control. Heaven forbid one of us gets hit by the proverbial bus on the way home today. Do we have life insurance? You can see that long-term care piece is there. If we don't have long-term care insurance, or if we don't have a family member who can help us, who can bring us into their home or something, that financial plan that we're trying to create is going to just disintegrate. It's going to just crumble. Same thing with long-term disability. And then the controllable things. We can control our emergency fund. You saw what Dave Ramsey talks about with the emergency fund. We're going to talk about that too. Do you have debt, and is it structured to be paid off properly? And if you have kids, if you have a family, do you have an estate plan? So retirement savings, you can see that it's there, but there's also a big component underneath that. And without that bedrock of defensive planning, the offensive stuff probably won't happen. If you're not making money and you're saving for retirement, then how do you save for retirement if the income isn't coming in? Where's it going to come from? So that's the kind of the breakout, the takeaway here. Next slide, Latron. So in a perfect world, has anybody seen the 60-20-20 principle, or some people online call it the 50-30-20 or the 20-60-20? Basically, what we want to do when we create a household budget is we want to live on 60% of our income. All of your needs, all of your essentials, your housing, your insurance, your transportation, your loan payments, your food. You should, in a properly structured budget, not be living on over 60% of your budget. And I get it. There's some people who make, very little and some people who make a lot. And so these numbers are, pliable. We can work with these. But this is just a good general guideline, because if you live on 60%, then you can save 20%. Remember, Dave Ramsey said save 15%. Well, I'm saying save at least 15% up to 20 if we can. And then 20% you can use on discretionary items. You can entertainment, buy new shoes, buy a handbag, whatever, go to the game. But that's ideally what a home budget should look like, is a 60-20-20. Next slide, Latron. So shown a different way. Again, these are all handouts I can send to anybody if they want them. 20% or more of your income should be saved or invested. And I like the other visual, but I like the way this is laid out, because it's not 60-20-20, it's 20-60-20. And what this implicitly tells us is to save first, to pay yourself first. All right? Pay yourself first. We're talking about retirement savings. A lot of people don't think they're going to live too long. They don't think they're ever going to retire. I can tell you, because I've worked with a lot of retired folks, your children or your grandchildren, whoever's there in the next generation, they're going to feel morally obligated to take care of you. So pay yourself first, so that you and your spouse are taken care of in the future, so that that family member that's coming behind you doesn't feel morally obligated, because then they're going to be missing out on maybe their retirement savings, or maybe taking their kids to a vacation, or doing whatever. So pay yourself first, get that 20% in the bank, get it in your investments, and move forward from there. Next slide, Latron. And this is another one. So I think this is maybe the best visual of the day. Happy to share it with you. If you can't see it, remember that Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps. All right? So when we're looking at the retirement savings waterfall, and for the record, you can go online, you can go on Google, you can type savings waterfall, retirement waterfall, investment savings waterfall, something like that. And you'll get hundreds of these types of visuals. I like this one. We want to save 3 to 6 months of expenses, okay? Ideally, that's in cash. Maybe a high yield savings account like Ally Bank is around 5% right now because of rates. Capital One has a high yield savings account. That's a pretty good bank. If you have, my wife and I have Chase as well, all of the big banks. If you're in a savings account there, you typically get like a 0.01%. Your money's not making money. It's actually losing money if you look at inflation. But keep your cash in something like a high yield savings like an Ally Bank, things like that. And ideally, it's 3 to 6 months of expenses. So when the what hits the fan, say you can't go to work, say your spouse can't go to work, things happen, you know that you have at least 3 to 6 months that you can survive, no questions asked. I don't need that income. It's really, really important, that emergency fund. The next one, take your company match. I don't know how many of you have, whether you're here or online watching, but that company match is free money. So if your company has a 401k and you're contributing, take the match. Never don't take it. And I know that's bad English. Okay? But take the match. And to that point, I have a lot of people that are contributing over and above the match. Like their company's offering a 5% match, but they're contributing 10 because they're behind in retirement, which a lot of Americans are. But yet they also have a lot of high interest debt. The numbers say that's not good. Okay? So what we want to do is use that, what we advise this guy to do is take that additional 5% that you're contributing to retirement and pay off your debt first. Okay, but always take the match. But that additional contribution isn't helping as much as that debt is hurting you. So take the match. Next step, next place your dollar should go is to pay off your highest interest debt. And then we're going to look at the Roth IRA. These numbers are a little bit old, but then we want to put money in a Roth IRA if possible. We already have our 401k money over here. Now we want the free Roth dollars, which we'll talk about Roth later. And then we can go to traditional IRA. And again, so many people aren't even to this last step, but then we're maxing out our 401k. And then we're doing some more after-tax savings after that. But this is a great rule of thumb on where all your dollars should go. If you don't have your emergency fund in place, get that started. Take the match at the same time. Pay off your debt next. Next slide, please. So let's get retirement specific. You guys should all ask me for this one. This is great. So a lot of people think with their retirement, they have their retirement accounts. They're called qualified accounts. So you have your 401ks and your IRAs, right? That's where people think, that's what retirement is, right? That's how we save for retirement. In retirement, though, you have about 9 or 10 different options that you can get income from if you plan for it in your working years. So if you look at the top row, there's concentrated assets. That's if maybe you have a rental home and you're getting some income from there. Maybe you have a business, you're getting income from there. You can see there's deferred annuities, investments, 401k, IRA, Roth, life insurance. On the left side, what we really want to look at, and we can get more specific, but that column on the left, income annuities, Social Security, pension, and other income source. Most people don't have pensions anymore. We can't fully trust and rely on Social Security. We typically tell our clients to plan for about 50%. And here's a good tip. If you go to ssa.gov, and sign in. You might have to log and register. That's the Social Security Administration. You can get what your estimated Social Security will be. And again, the longer you delay it, if you can delay it to age 70, it'll be more money versus if you take it earlier at 65 or 67. But we look at that left side as your base income, okay? So after that, let's say you need $5,000 a month to live in retirement, okay? Let's say you're gonna get $2,200 a month from Social Security, and you're kind of banking on that. And if you wanna bank on the government paying you, you can. I mean, some people do, some people don't. That's up to you. We then have to make up for the other $2,800 from that top row. And the cool thing about this visual, and I'll give you an example in a minute, is we want to have choices in retirement because we want to be able to control our taxable environment in retirement. So I'll use myself as an example. I'm 43 years old. 22 years from now, I'll be 65. I'm assuming 22 years from now, I will need more money to live than I do now. One reason, because of inflation, okay? So I'll probably be paying more taxes in the future, okay? How do I control that? How do I control it? One of the biggest ways is with the Roth, which we'll talk about on how to control our taxable environment. Another way you can do that is with permanent life insurance. And again, the thing is we want to be able to turn off and on those faucets as we need, because when that money comes into your cash reserve and then into your retirement income, ideally your bank account, you guys will have mortgages, you'll have to still eat. You'll probably want to take the kids or the grandkids to the zoo or something. So, but when that money hits your bank account, the government sees it and it's going to tax it accordingly. And a lot of these accounts get taxed as ordinary income. The Roth does not. So, and the life insurance also comes as a tax-free benefit to your account. So, as an example, we got a retired guy. He retired at the beginning of 2020. Okay, maybe the worst possible time for some people to retire. He had $1.7 million. He lives up in Hickory, North Carolina, and was happy. He and his wife, we have enough money. He was 70 years old, maybe 69 years old. And then 2020 happened, and then his whole portfolio went down about 25%. And now he and his wife are like, oh no, what do we do? Because 99% of his retirement money was in his 401k. So it was all taxed as ordinary income. All of that stuff, when it hit his account, was also he had to pull money from an asset that was depreciated 25%. He had no Roth dollars, and he had a permanent life insurance policy with us, but it was only a small policy. So some other people that have worked with us, in those instances where the market's down and your 401k is depleted and things like that, that's when we can pull from the Roth. That's when we can also ideally pull from a permanent life insurance account and let that asset that's depreciated 25% rebound and come back up. And then we're not pulling from that depreciated asset. So we can kind of hold off on it. So we really want to be able to control our taxable environment in retirement. Next slide, please. We just want to save by design. You can see there it says savings by design. Most people save by default. So I got $100 left in my account at the end of the month, I'm going to save it. You know, my income's going up. I'm going to put my expenses up too. but then I only have this amount at the end of the month. That's what I'm going to save. We want people to save by design. So if you're looking at retirement, which is the far right, then we need to look at those tax-deferred and tax-free vehicles, 401ks, IRAs, annuities, Roth IRA. If it's 10 years or more, we might look at permanent life insurance or property. Again, 2 to 10 years, we're looking at those investment accounts, those mutual funds, ETFs should be on there, things like that. But let's talk about the tax-deferred. We'll talk about the tax-deferred and the tax-free options for retirement here in a bit. Go ahead, next slide. Again, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but how many people are watching online or here are afraid of the market? There's probably a good deal. Some people are, some people aren't afraid of the market. What this shows you, if you look at the top, so a 1-year return in the market, the dark blue are the positive years, and the light gray are the negative years. So if you go back to 1926, a 1-year return, the stock market has a 73% chance of returning positive. If you could theoretically put your money in January 1 and take it out December 31. Okay. If you have a 5-year annualized return, you're looking at an 87% of the time, the market has returned positively. And if you have your money invested in the market for 15 years or longer, over the course of basically the last 100 years, you have a 100% chance of returning positive. So what I want to get you guys to understand is it's okay to be in the market. Time is important, but there is and the reason I bring this up, because this is personal to me, I have a neighbor and I have a friend back in Austin, Texas, and they both have the families, the married couples, they have several $100,000 in cash and they don't put it in the market. And that cash, obviously with inflation right where it is right now, they've lost a lot of money. They're afraid of the market. 2008 scared both of them to where they're like, I'm not doing anything in the market with my money. And it's just a bad strategy, you know, to keep money under your mattress. Next slide. Okay, so our approach. We want to protect, and then we want to optimize, and then we want to grow. Remember that financial planning pyramid? It had a defensive base, defensive foundation, and then we can get offensive. Then we can go on offense. So we want to protect and then optimize. We'll help you find the best ways to pay down any debts, freeing your money up for other goals. And then we're talking about growth. Retirement and big ticket items like buying a home or starting a family require saving strategies. We'll address each one of your goals in detail and show you how to achieve them. So again, I know we're talking retirement planning, but again, you got to reverse engineer this thing. You got to go upstream and make sure you're going to get there in the first place. Next slide. I really like this one because, again, I spent some of my career in the health and fitness arena. So a 2022 planning and progress study links financial discipline to happiness and sleep. 84% of disciplined planners are somewhat or very happy. 76% of disciplined planners sleep well or very well. 68%, somewhat very happy, 68% informal or non-planners, and then slept well, very well, 76% of disciplined planners to 62% of informal or non-planners. Okay, so again, prior preparation prevents poor performance, okay? We need to plan for what's coming up because it's coming for all of us. Next slide. So some retirement-specific accounts. Again, I was told to keep this kind of real high level, give you guys a breakdown. What's the difference between a 401k and an IRA? A 401k is employer-sponsored, okay? If you work for a company that offers one, that's what a 401k is. It's a retirement plan. It's qualified. What we want to know about a 401k is it provides less options typically. So if you're the janitor or the CEO, you have the same exact opportunity inside that company's 401k. And you only have those opportunities, what the company offers. 401k, it does allow for higher contributions. So you can contribute up to $22,500 in the 2023 tax year. And if you're over 50, you can contribute up to $30,000 a year. As you know, the government in their graciousness has allowed us to be able to contribute more once we're 50. An IRA, an individual retirement account, is just that. It's self-directed. It's your individual account. It does provide for more options. Whether you go to Merrill Lynch or Charles Schwab or us, there's a lot more opportunity there and a lot more places to invest your money than a 401k. Contributions are limited though, so $6,500 a year if you're under 50 and $7,500 a year if you're over 50. And that is for both a Roth and a traditional IRA. A lot of people have both. You can't contribute $6,500 in each. You can contribute $6,500 total in both for a tax year. Go ahead, next, Latron. And then a Roth versus traditional. And there is a strategy called a backdoor Roth. That's a great opportunity. You can get more than $6,500 a year into a Roth, which is really, really good. But we're not going to talk about backdoor Roth strategies or anything like that today. So Roth versus traditional. The traditional IRA is tax deductible, and again, this might be, review for a lot of folks. The traditional IRA is tax deductible in the year of contribution, and the Roth is not. All right. So, well, let's just go through this. The Roth grows tax-free, and distributions are tax-free. The Roth gives you tax versatility in the future, and if you don't, so what you basically want to understand about the difference is if you don't need the deductions this year, or if you think your income will be higher in retirement, use the Roth, okay? So let's say I make $100,000 a year, and I don't need the deductions this year. I give to the church, I have other deductions, things like that. Because if I'm making $100,000 and I have 20 years to retirement, chances are, if I want to keep my same lifestyle, what I'm going to need in my account in 20 years will probably be closer to $150,000, maybe even $160,000. So I'm, on paper, according to the government, making more money then than I am now. It'll put me in a different tax bracket. So I want to use my contributions for that $6,500 annually into a Roth, because when I pull it out, think about it's the same shell. So what you want to look at these is a traditional versus a Roth is a bottle. And whatever you put in, I could put gasoline in here, I could put chocolate milk in here, I could put water in here. The Roth or the traditional is just the shell, okay? And it's taxed accordingly, according to the government. So you could have the same investments in there. So let's say you have two side by side and you run them side by side for the next 20 years, a traditional and a Roth, and you pull that money out in 20 years, that traditional dollar is going to get taxed. The Roth dollar is not going to get taxed. So let's say I need $160,000 to live. And let's say then it'll jump from 14 to 22% my taxes at, let's say, $150,000 of income. I can pull 100, 120 from my traditional, and on paper I only made that 120 to the government, and I pay taxes on that. I can pull the other 60 from the Roth, and I keep my taxable environment at 14% versus 22%. That's the beauty of the Roth, is it allows you to control that taxable income in the future, especially if you're jumping between tax brackets. It makes it really nice. But no, you cannot deduct that this year. So that's the one drawback. But the Roth is one of the best tools that Congress has given us in the financial industry. And if you have access to a Roth, there are some 401ks that offer a Roth option. If your employer, if you are contributing to a 401k, see if they have a Roth option. You can convert it, but just be aware when you do convert, then you have to pay the taxes on that right then and there, typically in that same quarter. So if you were to go to your boss on Monday and say, hey, I have a Roth option, or go to HR, I want to convert that, don't do it without knowing the tax implications. I got a guy who has he has an old 401k with an old employer. It's like $42,000 or $45,000, and he wants to convert it to a Roth, but he'll have about a $3,000. Well, no, we were going to convert a third of it. He would have had to pay $3,000 by September 15th, which is the end of quarter 3, in taxes because he's converting it to the Roth. Well, the government's going to get paid, whether it's now or in the future. They're going to get their dollar. They're going to get their money. So when you convert, they're like, okay, you want to do that? That's fine. But you gotta pay us. You gotta give us our money because you didn't pay money on this when you initially contributed it. So just be aware of that if and when you convert. Next slide. Cool. All right. I'll speed up, sorry. I told you, my dad's a pastor. I take after him. I start talking. So going back to that bucket, so I'm going to blame you for everything. So going back to that bucket slide, keep that in mind as we go to these next few slides here, Latron. So Ernst & Young did a study 2 years ago, benefits of integrating insurance products into a retirement plan. I know y'all have talked about insurance in here. Go through this, next slide. So this is a great study. If you just type Ernst & Young 2021 study, you'll probably find this. It's about a 10-page document. They show different case studies. This is a 45-year-old couple, 90% probability of success. What we're basically looking at is the vertical column is how important it is to leave a legacy. So leave money to your kids, whatever. If you go along the horizontal row, it's how much income I need, how to maximize your income in retirement. Maybe you don't have kids. Maybe you want to go, take a cruise every year, and you're going to need a lot of income. So what this shows is our good buddy Dave Ramsey, he says, buy term and invest the rest. And that is really good for a lot of America. Again, he has a niche. He has that middle-class American family making less than $100,000 of household income. That's a smart play for them. But you can see the orange dots are his strategy that Ernst & Young uncovered 2 years ago. If you buy term insurance and invest the rest. If your goal going up top vertically is to maximize your legacy, the bigger the green dot and the darker the green dot is how much money I have in permanent life insurance. So you obviously, a legacy piece, life insurance is that main legacy piece. Heaven forbid you pass away, you're going to leave a good substantial amount of money usually to your family. So that makes sense. That's what this plot really says. But if you look at the green box, it says a balance of income and legacy. Again, all of the green dots are showing, hey, permanent life insurance really does help. Now, it's not for everybody. Trust me, it's not. As well as, I'm sorry, I forgot one thing, as well as deferred income annuities. So the purple dots are integrated deferred income annuities, and that's what really maximizes your income in the future. And again, annuities aren't for everybody, but it is a thing for some people. But you have to make sure, remember that retirement waterfall. We got to pay down our debt. We got to contribute, take the employer contribution of our 401k. Then we got to max our 401k. So annuities, a lot of people like to talk about them because it sounds nice to have a guaranteed income in our retirement, but it's really down the line for a lot of people. You have to have a lot of boxes checked before we're talking annuities. Next slide. Yeah, there he is. I'm trying to compound the same thing. So if we go back one, so that's the 45-year-old couple. Now fast forward 2 slides. There's the 35-year-old couple. It looks pretty much the same. They also have an example for a 55-year-old couple. So you can see, basically how do I maximize my income in retirement, or how do I maximize my legacy, and where I should be, moving the pieces on the chessboard. Next piece. But doesn't defense win championships? That's what that slide says. And yes, it does. Next slide. So before you go on, what's your biggest asset? And does anybody want to, I don't want to know the price. Your house. A lot of people say that. Yep, your house. So I want to show you this. This is a couple I worked with just last week. We've met now a few times. You can see the lifetime earning potential. He makes $60,000. She makes $45,000. Okay, so we're talking, blue collar, middle America people. They're both in their early 40s, so he has about 23 years left of work. She has about 21 years left of work. At $60,000 a year for the next 23 years, he's set to make almost $1.8 million. She has 21 years left. At $45,000 a year, she's set to make $1.2 million. So the way we look at it is your ability to make money is your biggest asset. Everybody says my house is my biggest asset. But I guarantee you, I can tell you they don't live in a $1.2 or $1.7 million home. So your ability on January 1st, essentially, to swipe the ATM card for $60K, swipe the ATM card for whatever you make, times however many years you think you're going to be working, that's your biggest asset. We got to protect your income. If you're contributing to your 401k, if you're contributing to your IRA, and you can't contribute because your income stopped, what's retirement planning mean anyway? It doesn't mean anything. So next page. Here's another example. This is a married guy who just got out of the military. He's making $47,000 a year, but he has 38 years left. His wife actually makes a really good salary, and she's really young, 128,000 a year, and she has 43 years left. If she never gets a pay raise, just inflation, she's going to make almost $9 million in her life. So your income is your biggest asset, your ability to make it. As a side note, to replace that income, what you want to have for your spouse in place, that's how we determine how much life insurance you need. So let's say she passed away, her husband would need $2.7 million in a lump sum tomorrow in an investment account to make up for that missed $9 million, okay? So that's how we figure out how much life insurance that you need. Next slide, please. So income protection, disability insurance. Again, I know we're talking retirement planning, but if you don't make any money, if you can't make any money, what happens to retirement planning? It goes by the wayside. So I want to show you just a couple things here. Fast forward. So what are 3 ways your income stops? There's only 3 ways, okay? You die. Heaven forbid, we don't want that to happen. You get disabled. Again, heaven forbid that happens. We want our income to stop when we decide it stops, when work becomes optional. When we say, hey, honey, hey, I think we can retire. I think I can retire. We want to make it our decision and not someone else's decision. So how are you going to get paid when your income stops? Next slide. 1 in 4 of today's 20-year-olds will become disabled by age 67. Typically, the American workforce, 25% of us become disabled for at least 2 years in our work life. Go ahead, next slide. This is claims by our company. These are the literal numbers of what people claim disability for, why they can't work. 25% musculoskeletal, 19% cancer, 12% mental disorders, substance abuse, 9% other, 8% heart. So it could be a variety of things. Next slide. These are actual claims made by people. You can see their occupation. You can see when they went out of work. You can see their monthly benefit and how much that we've paid to them over time. We'll just skip right through that. So you need to add a layer of confidence. Disability income insurance offers extra assistance when you need it, okay? Fast forward. So you need to ask yourself, what would I do if my business partner became totally disabled? Because you can take policies out on each other. Am I protected in the event of a catastrophic disability? What costs are associated with catastrophic disability? How would I be able to pay for my living expenses and bills? And I can add, how would I pay for my retirement expenses if I'm not making money today? Next slide. So Dave Ramsey says you need to have 60 to 70% of your income covered by disability. A lot of employers cover this for you. A lot of people don't do it. They opt out. Please don't opt out of it, okay? Across the entire financial industry, it says 1 to 3% of your income should be going towards income protection or disability income insurance or long-term disability, whatever you want to call it. The employer-sponsored stuff is the less costly option. It is taxed as ordinary income, though, and it stays with your job. So you get disabled, go to the HR, hey, I'm disabled. They say you have a 50, it's usually 60 or 50%. Say you have a 60% coverage benefit. That hits your bank account. That's taxed as ordinary income because the employer is paying for it, okay? If you personally pay for it, then it's tax-free, and it is portable. You can take it with you to your next job. Next slide. So these are folks I'm looking for. You know, I just put, who do you know who's been married for 10 or 20 years, runs a business with 5 to 10 employees, or who just got a new job. Because usually when you change jobs, the 401k, there's an old one out there somewhere. A lot of people have, you should look this up. It's fascinating. There's trillions of dollars out there, people forgotten 401ks. It's a common thing. So we have to continue that retirement strategy with folks, especially when they get new jobs. And those are just some folks that I'm looking for. Next slide. And maybe this could be the Q&A part, Latron. You remember that 58-year-old guy with his shirt off? He always did this in his presentations, and I love it, and I've always done it in mine ever since. What are 10 things you learned today? This is a really great way to remember and really helps other people remember. So feel free to just shout anything out. If people are online, I don't know if anybody's monitoring that, but feel free to say anything.
You gave an example of a person that had a 401k, and you said if they, for example, converted it to a Roth, they would have to pay the $3,000 or whatever on taxes. My question is I want to make sure I understood that you said a Roth is totally tax-free totally. Is that correct, or I misunderstood something?
Yeah, so you can't deduct Roth contributions in the year that you make the money and make the contributions. But the growth is entirely tax-free, and then the distribution that you receive is tax-free. Yeah, that's the beauty of the Roth. Yeah. So if you can imagine 20 years of growth and all of that money that you're going to be paying on in taxes in an IRA, but if it's a Roth IRA, that 20 years of growth is all tax-free.
So, since the government normally does not give you a break on anything where you receive or make money, what's the catch? Because there has to be like a time frame or something that you have to hold the money, or what is it?
So once you get to the 5-year mark with the Roth, you can take out, so IRAs and 401ks, you cannot take any money out before age 59 and a half without a penalty. Roth's a little different though. After 5 years, you can take out your cost basis. No penalties. So let's say you invest the max, $6,500 over 10 years, that's $65,000. And in 10 years, you need $65,000. You can go to your Roth and take $65,000 out because that's what you put in, and you never paid taxes on it. It's your money, and have no problems. Now, if you wanted 70, then you'll get taxed on 5,000. But because you put in the 65,000, anything that you take out up to your cost basis after 5 years, you can take out free of charge. No penalties. Did that answer your question? Okay. So that was, we'll call that 2 things. What else?
Would it be fair to say that the catch with the Roth is that you're paying taxes on the front end, whereas with a regular traditional IRA, you would be putting the money in pre-tax and paying taxes when you take it out. With the Roth, you're paying the taxes on the front end, and then you're getting to take the money out tax-free. So that's kind of the catch, I would say.
Well, and Jeff's a lawyer, so he answered your question much better, just straight and direct, but that was exactly the answer. Yeah, the catch is you got to pay taxes on it today. So you can't deduct it like you can a traditional. Yeah. He said that might come out too.
Hello.
Yeah. So that, we'll call that 4 things. Can we get a few more if we have time? If we don't have time, that's fine.
Okay, I have a question from someone watching online. Okay, you mentioned, it says he mentioned the use of the stock market. And she has in parentheses, I don't consider it because I don't understand it. But what about investing in various company stocks?
Good luck. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can invest in various company stocks. What's really popular nowadays is ETFs, or exchange traded funds. What I would recommend is at least go the mutual fund route. So if you look up, and I don't know who this person is, one of the easiest ways to do it, if you're, it sounds like this person might be timid, maybe cautious. You can look up target date funds. So let's say you go to one of the big, Charles Schwab, Morgan Stanley, whoever, or even, sounds like this person, and I have it too, but you download the Fidelity app, you download the Vanguard app, and you do your own investing. Okay, you can put in your age. Let's say you're 40, and you have they usually go in 5-year increments for these target date funds. So let's say at age 40, I plan on working 25 more years. That puts me to 2048. You can say, I want the target date fund of 2050. Okay, and so what it does is it bases what you are invested in based on your time horizon, or how long until retirement. So the farther away you are, it'll be a little more risky, okay? And then as you get closer, every year, the fund rebalances itself. And so as you get closer, it becomes more conservative, if that makes sense. That's probably a better approach because you're going to be invested in a lot more companies versus just, I think Tesla's going to do well. I think, Google's going to do well. If you look at these target date funds, there might be 100 or 1,000 companies in there. So you're much more well diversified and much more safe.
Could you explain annuities for me, please? Reason I asked that question is because when I was working for the employer, you can only leave the beneficiary, I guess is the right term for that, to be someone within your age group and not somebody, not a legacy type investment.
The best way to look at an annuity is it's the opposite of life insurance. So life insurance creates an estate, and an annuity liquidates an estate. So you get an annuity, again, you have to have several of these other bases covered. And then you can put money into an annuity, and it's basically just guaranteed income. And there are, the companies have learned, there are a ton of options. So you could do it by yourself. You could do it with a spouse, last one to die. You could do all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, that money is locked up. What a lot of people will do is they'll, let's say, there's a couple we're working with, they have a couple $1 million in their retirement. They carved off like $500,000 and gave it to us to put into annuity. And they think they're going to retire in about 10 years. And they're looking at Social Security, looking at the retirement accounts. But the longer they let us hold the money, the more that monthly benefit will be. But it has to be with us at least 10 years. And then once they say turn it on, it's on. You can't change it back off. And it is just monthly check after monthly check after monthly check. Again, most of them, it's called single life. It's until you die. But it could be until an age. It could be until your spouse dies. So it's like a dual annuity. But you're essentially tying up a portion of money. You can't ever pull that chunk back out. You're just going to get a monthly check until the contract says it's over. So you're liquidating an estate versus creating an estate.
Okay, so that's why you have to be within a certain age range of each other. Like if I set one up for myself,
yeah,
the residual that I have with that annuity at the time of my death, my spouse can get it.
There's options. Some are it's done. Some are you leave it. Some are, there can be a beneficiary, like a life insurance kind of piece to it. Sometimes every contract is different. Read the contract and know what you're signing.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of annuities. When that person that signed the contract dies, it's done. So a lot of people get annuities if they're worried they're going to outlive their money. Okay. You know what I mean? If your mom, if your grandma, if your great-grandma lived till 90, 95, 100, and you got all these other pieces in place, yeah, maybe we can talk annuities. But if you want to take a cruise, if you think you're going to need a new car, don't do it because you're not going to be able to pull a chunk off. You're getting a monthly check. That's what it looks like. Yeah. Cool. Can you click on the next slide? There's my phone number. That's my cell phone. Goes right to my back pocket. You can call or text. And then there's my email address as well. Thanks, Latron. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Again, let's just give Phil another round of applause. Yeah, this is some great information. I'm actually using Phil for insurance, but also we've been talking about retirement as well because it's very important, and we all need to try to make those plans and preparations in order to be able to live our best years, after we retire. So thank you again, Phil. If you need to get in touch with Phil, and we do have the slides, is that okay to distribute? We'll put your watermark, all your contact information on the pages. So. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you again, and want to also give the floor to Mr. and I'm going to try this, Kyriakakis. I was close, right? And Mr. Kyriakakis is an attorney, and he's going to be discussing disability. Disability is like way over my head. I mean, I don't know a lot about it, but hopefully you can shed some light on the topic. So y'all give a hand to Jeff Kyriakakis.
My name is Jeff Kyriakakis. I'm an attorney with Ted Grieve and Associates, and I practice mainly Social Security and workers' compensation law. I'm going to be talking a little bit today about Social Security disability benefits as they are allowed through the federal government. The federal government has two basic programs for Social Security disability. The first one is Social Security Disability Insurance. That is a program for people that become disabled before they can retire. That program also requires you to have paid into the system in the form of taxes, FICA taxes specifically. You have to have worked a substantial amount of time, and you have to have worked fairly recently in order to get these benefits. Essentially, you have to work 5 of the last 10 years to be eligible for Social Security disability. The government allows you to earn credits, and a credit is every $1,640 that you earn as wages. So every time you earn $1,640, you get a credit. You get up to 4 credits a year, okay? And you need to get 20 credits total before you can get Social Security disability, and those credits have to be within the last 10 years. So simply put, if you've worked 5 of the last 10 years, you're going to be eligible for Social Security disability. Now, just because you're eligible doesn't mean you're going to get it, because you still have to prove that you're disabled, but those credits will allow you to at least apply. If you stop working, if you become disabled and stop working, those credits are going to drop off. And eventually, you're not going to be eligible for Social Security disability anymore, even though you paid into the system for quite a bit of time. So I'll have people come into my office, and I'll talk to them about their work history, and some people have worked really consistently and then gotten sick or had an injury, and now they're out of work. Other people have spotty work records. They don't really know if they're eligible or not. So what we do is we'll pick up the phone and we'll call Social Security disability, and they will tell us what that person's date last insured is. And that date last insured is the last day that you are eligible for Social Security disability. And sometimes a person will have a date last insured that's 2-3 years ago. Sometimes if they've been working a lot, it'll be 2 or 3 years in the future. And then we'll know whether or not we can proceed with that claim. The other program is SSI, which is supplemental income. You don't have to have ever worked to get supplemental income, okay? You could never have worked a day in your life and get supplemental income. But the trade-off is that you have to be really needy, okay? It's a need-based program. And essentially, outside of your house and 1 car, if you've got $2,000 worth of stuff, then you're not going to be eligible for SSI, okay? And that means, other than your house and your car, cash, stocks, land, personal effects, anything else that you've got, the government's going to add this stuff up. And if you've got more than $2,000 as an individual or $3,000 as a couple, you will not be eligible for Social Security supplemental income. So it's need-based, but you never have to work to get the benefits. Now, those are just kind of the eligibility requirements to get through the door, okay? Once you're through the door, what do you have to show that you're disabled? Well, the definition of disability is that you have to not be able to engage in a substantial gainful activity because of a medically determinable physical or mental impairment that is either expected to result in death or last at least 12 months. What does that mean as a practical matter? Well, the federal government has something called substantial gainful activity. And what that means is that if you earn over $1,470 in any given month, you're automatically not disabled during that month, okay? If you're below it, you can actually apply for disability benefits and potentially get them. Although, if you're working and you've got a disability claim, you're going to at some point have to explain to the government why you're working maybe 20 or 30 hours a week and why you can't actually work 40. And some people can show that they've got disabilities that limit their hours. The stronger cases are obviously people that aren't working at all. But what the federal government wants to see as a practical matter is that you have not worked for at least 12 months, period. If you haven't been out of work for 12 months, you're going to get denied. I've had people on life support that have not gotten disability because they have not crossed that 12-month threshold. So the federal government's going to want to see that you're out for 12 months. And most people don't understand that. They come in my office and they'll say, I had a heart attack 3 weeks ago. Can I get Social Security disability? And I'll say, well, how long are you going to be out of work? Well, my doctor says I'm going to have rehab and I'll be back to work in 2 months. That person is not going to get Social Security disability. You're going to have to be out of work for at least a year before the federal government is going to seriously consider your claim. Now, how much do the 2 programs pay? Well, Social Security disability insurance obviously is going to pay a lot more because you have paid taxes into the system, okay? Social Security, the average recipient received $1,483 per month, although people that earn more money, the maximum benefit for 2023, $3,627 per month for high wage earners. And what they do is they look back at your work history up to the previous 35 years, and there's a complex calculation the federal government uses to figure out your benefit. But the average benefit's $1,483 up to $3,627. Conversely, SSI, which is the need-based program, the most you're going to get is $941. And then the government's going to subtract out certain amounts if you're receiving any type of assistance from other people, if somebody's helping you with your mortgage or your utilities or your bills, and the government's aware of that, they're going to take a portion of that assistance and take away from your $941. So obviously SSI is going to pay significantly less than SSDI. How do you apply? Well, you can go to your local office and fill out an application. You can call 1-800-772-1213, and they will set you up with a telephone appointment to apply, or you can do it online at ssa.gov/apply-for-benefits. There is one point there, though. You can only apply online for Social Security disability benefits if you've paid into the system. If you're an SSI candidate, you have to do a telephone or an in-person application. You can't apply online. The application process, if you've ever known anybody that's applied for Social Security disability, it can be daunting and it can be long. Typically, you'll make the initial application. You'll wait anywhere from 6 months to a year, typically, to get either an acceptance or a denial. Most people get denied the first time, and most people get denied the second time if they appeal. The second step is called reconsideration, and that's where somebody else in the same office looks at your application again. And frankly, if you get denied the first time, you're probably going to get denied the second time. Most people get denied the first 2 times. The third step is where you file for a hearing, and that's where most people have some success. I believe the statistics show that North Carolina, 62% of people that kept their claim going, appealed it, and went to a hearing in front of a judge actually won. So you've got close to a 2 in 3 chance of winning if you stick it out and you go through the entire process. The thing is, most people get that first denial letter and they don't understand that they can appeal. They throw it aside and they say, well, I guess I'm not going to get it. And the federal government saves millions of dollars a year, probably hundreds of millions of dollars a year, because people don't proceed with their claims and continue to appeal them.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can I ask?
Sure.
One question, just 2 questions. One, what is the benefit of getting a lawyer versus trying to do it by yourself?
Okay.
And the second one, during that year or 2 year or more process, is there any funds that may be available, or have you seen anything that can help people supplement while they're waiting?
Okay, well, to answer your first question, we actually encourage people to go ahead and do the initial application themselves to see if they get it. As you're going to find out in just a few minutes, the way Social Security decides cases can be fairly complicated. So to have a lawyer that understands the way Social Security looks at cases can be very beneficial, because I guarantee you the average person has no idea how Social Security decides these cases. I'm going to go over it, overview in just a second. So you'll get that benefit from a lawyer. And the lawyer pretty much all disability lawyers charge the same thing, 25% of back benefits, if you have any back benefits, okay? And it's capped at $7,200. So it's whichever is less, $7,200 or 25%. And of course, if you don't win your case, the lawyer doesn't get paid, okay? So the benefit to the lawyer is, to getting lawyers, the lawyer knows the process. As far as bridging that gap, there's only 2 things I've really seen. One is you rely on friends or family members, or if you are working and then get sick or become disabled, a lot of times you have short-term and long-term disability through your employer. So you can make that application and use those benefits to get you by. I will tell you that virtually all long-term disability insurance policies require you to apply for Social Security disability at some point. And the reason they pretty much force you to apply for Social Security disability is they lower their benefit by what you get from Social Security, okay? So they're going to force you to apply. And if you don't apply for Social Security disability within that window, they're going to automatically reduce your benefit by what they think you should have gotten. Okay? So if you end up getting short-term and long-term, it's very beneficial to make sure you apply for Social Security disability when you get to that 1 year mark, when you know you've been out of work for a year. Okay. Did I answer your question? Okay, great. Let's see. So the process is long and arduous for most people. Now I'm going to tell you how Social Security decides these cases. There's pretty much 3 different ways. One way is the way that most people manage to get their cases resolved quickly. The thing is, they've got to be the most severe cases, okay? And they're called meeting a listing. A listing is where Social Security has all different types of ailments and the level of severity that you need to meet to become disabled, okay? They're fairly clear-cut, but they're often somewhat complex in terms of you might have to provide, if you have cancer, you might have to have certain blood markers, or if you have COPD, you might have to have a spirometer where you meet a certain ability to, inhale, exhale. So most of it relies on medical evidence. I've got some basic examples of some simpler ones in the handout. If your heart is only pumping at 20% or less, you're going to get on disability. You're going to meet that listing. If you have an IQ below 60, if you have an IQ test that you can show them and you're under 60, you're going to get on disability. If you're on dialysis for kidney failure, you're going to get on disability. So these are some simple examples, but what these examples are for is so that the lower level examiners can just kind of say, well, look, this person meets this with these medical records, you win, okay? And it's a way for these lower level examiners at the first 2 levels to move these cases along. The trick is, though, it's got to be a pretty severe case, and most people that are applying for disability don't have cases that rise to that level, okay? And that's why most of them drag on for a long period of time. So you can meet a listing. The second is called grid rules. Grid rules, if you look at I have a handout, and I've left a whole bunch of handouts in the back, so if people are here for Sunday services tomorrow, they can grab a handout. There's a complex grid that Social Security uses, and it's really for people over 50. The government recognizes that if you're over 50 years old, even if you can work, there just aren't as many jobs out there for you, okay? So they recognize that even if you can do some work, you might still be disabled based on your education and your work experience. For example, when you hit 50 years old, if you've got high school education or less, and you have a history of work that's unskilled, okay? But you can still do sedentary work, which is sit-down work. They're going to find you disabled, okay? Because the federal government recognizes that if all you can do is sit-down work, but you only have a high school education and you've been a cook your whole life, there's no jobs for you, okay, in the economy. So there's this grid here where they've got different age groups, different levels of work, sedentary, light, and medium. They'll look at your education, they'll look at your previous work experience, and if you can check off all the boxes, then you're going to win your case, okay? Something that people are kind of surprised by, if you're under the age of 50, you have to show that you can't do any work, not even a sit-down job, okay? A lot of people think that if I can't do my past work, I'm going to get on Social Security disability because I can't do my past job. No. You've got to show that you cannot even do a sit-down job, okay? You have to take yourself out of the workforce. And if you go to a hearing, the Social Security Administration has a vocational expert that's going to have a book called the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, and they're going to flip through that book, and they're going to look at your residual functional capacity and your age and your education, and they're going to try to find jobs that you can do, okay? That's where you're going to wish you had a lawyer, all right, when that happens, when you get to the hearing stage. I would encourage anybody that gets to the hearing stage to get a lawyer. You don't want to go to the hearing by yourself. So you can meet the grid, or you can meet the listing, and then there's something that we call the totality of the circumstances, which is where the judge will look at your mental issues, your physical issues, your work background, your credibility. They want to see that what you're testifying to is consistent with what you've told your doctors. That's really important. And then they look at job reliability issues too with the totality of the circumstances. You're not severe enough to meet a listing. You're not going to meet those grid rules. But when you take everything into account, you've got some mental problems, you've got some physical problems, you don't have a lot of education. And then some people have conditions that are going to affect your ability to just be a reliable employee. And for example, if you've got severe mental issues, you might get so depressed that you just can't get into work one day, or you can't work well with other people, okay? Or you can't concentrate, you're distracted. So you might have a fairly simple job, but you just can't focus. And these type of things, the federal government recognizes, look, an employer's not gonna keep you. If you're missing 2 or 3 days because you're depressed or you're melting down, you've got decompensation issues, if people that have things like IBS, okay, you're using the bathroom constantly, no employer is gonna let you take bathroom breaks constantly, okay? So if you can't be there doing the job 8 hours a day, then the federal government can find you disabled under situations like that. Another thing is people that have diabetes and their legs swell up and you have to elevate your legs for a good portion of the day. Most employers aren't gonna let you put your legs up, no matter what kind of job. Even if it's a sit-down job, they're not gonna let you put your legs up all day, okay? So you can be found disabled because you cannot do that sit-down job. You have to have your legs elevated all day, okay? Or even part of the day. So that's the totality of the circumstances method. I always look at all 3 of those methods with all my clients and try to figure out the best one to get them over the hump so that they can win their case, okay? I've got 7 crucial errors when applying for disability benefits that I'll go over quickly. One is collecting unemployment benefits when you're also applying for disability. That can be a problem because on its face, it looks like you could have a credibility issue. On the one hand, you're applying for disability and saying you can't work, but then you're getting unemployment, right? And you're saying you can work, and you're usually having to look for work, all right? So a judge may look at that and say, well, wait a second, you're saying that you're disabled and you can't work at the same time you're saying that you can work. You've got a credibility problem. Some people do, some people don't. I've had a lot of clients that really had a hard time accepting the fact that they were as sick as they were. They don't want to be out of work. They want to work. They will go back and try, and they will fail. And they might get unemployment benefits until they can find another job. And they might go back and try again and fail again, okay? So these are people that aren't trying to work the system. They just are having a hard time accepting the fact that they can't work, and they're going to have some failures before they finally get there. And that's okay. The government doesn't mind. Those judges don't mind it. They like to see people that have gone back to work and at least tried, okay? So if you fall into that category, that's kind of an exception to the rule. But as a general rule, you know, if you don't fall into that particular category, you don't want to have that credibility issue going forward. Another thing is continuing to work while you're trying to apply for disability, okay? Yes, you can work. If you stay under that $1,470 a month, you can make a little bit of money and still apply for disability to even get it. As I said before, you might have to explain to a judge why, you know, you can work part-time and not full-time. At the same time, I understand that people have families and they need to put food on the table, okay? So I tell people don't put all your eggs in one basket, all right? Is it an error to continue to work while you're applying for disability? On its face, yes, because you have a better case if you're not working. But as a practical matter, you know, if I tell you don't work and then you lose everything and then you lose your Social Security claim, I can't sleep at night, all right? So I tell people, don't put your eggs all in one basket. If you've got to work to put food on the table, if you've got to work to pay your bills, you do it. And I will play the hand that I'm dealt, okay? I will play the hand that I'm dealt, and I will explain to the judge why you needed to work and while you're still disabled, okay? Not checking the status of your disability claim. There are so many claims out there, you would not believe it. If you get on the Social Security website and you look, they have every major city and how long you have to wait for a disability hearing. And this is the time you file for the hearing. This is the 3rd step. You've already applied, been denied, applied, denied again. Now you filed for the hearing, 18 months in Charlotte. That's what they're showing as the average wait right now. I have found personally in my practice that it's not taking quite that long, but I've seen cases where it's easily taken that long. So there's so many cases, they're so backed up, you've got to be the squeaky wheel. You've got to call, check on your case, or set up an online account and check on your case. Cases get ignored all the time. They don't copy me on documents, and I'm the lawyer. I tell all my clients, if you get a denial in the mail, you call me, because 1 out of 10, they don't copy me on the denial. And we only have 60 days to appeal. If we miss the appeal, the claim dies. So I always tell people, when you get a denial in the mail, you call me immediately, because there's a chance they didn't send me a copy, and I need to appeal it as soon as possible. So you got to be the squeaky wheel. You got to keep checking on your case. Another huge mistake is not appealing it, okay? You've got 60 days. You have potential back benefits that you're going to get, okay? Some people can show up to a year prior to their application date that they're disabled. If you let that 60 days run, that back money's gone forever, okay? My heart breaks for people that come in and they have a denial letter in their hand and it's been 120 days or 100 days because that 60 days is gone and they have to start over and that back money is gone, okay? So that 60-day window is very important. Another good reason to get a lawyer because lawyers are going to make sure that these deadlines get met. Another big problem, not taking your doctor's advice, not taking medication. If you get to the hearing stage and the judge sees that you're not following your doctor's advice and you're not taking your medicine, you're going to have a hard time with your case because the judge is going to say, well, if you've got mental problems and you took your medication, maybe these issues would subside and you could be in the workforce. Or if you have, if you broke your leg and you needed physical therapy and you didn't do the physical therapy, then you're putting yourself in a position where a judge might say you're exacerbating the problem, okay? And you don't want that to happen. So you always want to follow your doctor's advice. It's very important. Failing to claim mental conditions. Mental conditions are very important, especially if you have physical issues that don't quite get you over the hump. A lot of times mental problems, even though people don't like to admit to them, will get you over the hump to the totality of the circumstances where everything combined, a judge will find you disabled, okay? And finally, not getting medical treatment. You gotta have medical treatment. You can't win your case without medical treatment. The definition of disability is that you have not engaged in SSA because of a medically determinable physical or mental impairment. Medically determinable. You gotta have a diagnosis, okay? You have to have a diagnosis, which means you have to have medical records. If you don't have medical records, you're not gonna win your case. So you have to find a way to get treatment, okay? Just a few more things. The spousal benefit, not exactly related to disability, although it's an interesting thing that most people don't know about. If your spouse is disabled and receiving disability benefits or retired and receiving retirement benefits, and you've been married at least a year, and you're 62 years or older, or also taking care of a disabled child, you can pull off of your spouse's earnings and get a benefit, okay? So if your spouse is retired or your spouse is disabled and you're at least 62, you can get money off of their earnings record. And basically at 62, you can get 32.5% of whatever they're getting. And if you wait till your full retirement age, which would be 67, even though you've never worked, okay, you can get money up to 50% of what your spouse is getting, okay? So if you have a retired spouse or you have a disabled spouse and you're 62 or older and you're not getting that benefit, you need to look into it because you will be getting anywhere between 32.5 and 50% of what your spouse is getting, okay? Very important. Couple of final things. Social Security disability applicants that win, they can get benefits, I think I mentioned this earlier, up to 1 year prior to their application date, okay? So if you're going through the entire process, you got to go through a hearing and you're waiting, it could take 2 years and you get a year back, you're looking at 3 years of back benefits, maybe more. I've had people get $40,000, $50,000, even more in back benefits, okay? So there's quite a bit of money that can be accumulated over time. And then once you're disabled for 2 years, you get on Medicare, okay? So the judge, if you win, will say, okay, I find you disabled as of, and they'll put a date that they find you disabled, usually based on your testimony and your medical records. Once you cross that 2-year threshold, you're automatically eligible for Medicare. I've had clients that have won and it's already been 2 years, right? So the judge finds that they're disabled 2.5 years ago, they automatically get Medicare, okay? With Social Security supplemental income, there aren't any back benefits prior to your application, okay? So you can't go back before then. But if you win, you're going to get on Medicaid right away, okay? So that's the benefit there. And the last thing I'll tell you is that some of the best clients I have and the best cases I have are people that got hurt at work and they're getting workers' comp benefits and they have severe injuries and they're just not able to get back from work. And then once they hit the year mark, I always encourage those people to apply for Social Security disability benefits as well. because that's extra money. You don't get your full Social Security disability benefit. The government doesn't let you double up on anything anymore. They always kind of reduce benefits, but you'll definitely get some additional Social Security money on top of your workers' comp benefits. And I have found that judges, for some reason, I mean, they almost always find folks that have been hurt on the job, that have been out for a year. They almost always find them disabled. They're very strong cases. So if you've gotten hurt on the job and you're getting workers' comp and you've been out for more than a year, I highly recommend that you apply for Social Security disability. You're probably going to win that case, okay? And that's pretty much what I've got. It's just a general overview. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. And I will leave my contact information in the back, okay? So if anybody needs it, I'll take it.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Yeah, definitely anything dealing with disability. If you have any questions, follow-up questions, please feel free to take down Jeff's contact information, and I think we can get it on social media as well for those that were online. He has some cards as well. Yeah, so definitely, we had a great session today. You know what? Hold on one second. I forgot my sheet. The next session is September the 9th, right? And we're going to be discussing credit management, and budgeting, right? So, we all have, things that we need to take care of. We all have bills, we have expenses, we have income coming in. We heard Phil say earlier, it's best to be able to, if you can, live off about 60% of your overall income. Also, taking into account all of your income and, not going to the movies every Friday night, and spending, 50, 60, $100 on popcorn. That's how they get you, they get you with all the snacks. But, being able to budget, be able to live your life, but also budget and be able to make the most of, your income by saving and putting away. So we're going to talk budgeting, also, credit management. Ideally, credit is it's a game, it's a system. We was talking about Dave Ramsey in the beginning. He doesn't believe in that whole credit system, credit scoring system. But that's what we have here today. A lot of what we do is based on that credit score. Soon, eventually, credit is, may be taken over by the federal government through the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. So we need to start understanding how that works. And if you choose not to play the game, what you're going to have to do to prepare yourself for what will be facing you if you decide not to. But then there's a hybrid approach, to make sure that you're not succumb to the pitfalls of the credit game, but then also making sure that you are in a position to do some of the things that the game will allow you to do. So September 9th, credit and budgeting. Is there anything I missed? And September 30th, which is the Medicare, right? Sponsored by State Farm. All right. So if you guys are, wanting to learn more about Medicare and get more information for yourself or your family members, definitely come to that session as well, because we're going to be providing some additional information on that. So again, thank you, Mr. Karyakakis. Perfect. Cool. We appreciate you coming out and sharing information. And again, we'll make sure everybody get your contact information if they have any more. Any more announcements, comments? All right. Well, I think what we'll do is we'll end up a little early today. Again, thank you for those that have joined us online. Looks like we had some really good participation online, as well as those that came out. Pastor, do you want to close us out in prayer?
Thank you so much. Come on and give the team a hand for getting everybody together. Wonderful, wonderful job. Thank you for those that are watching online, those of you that have come in person. We are indeed thankful for what God is doing. doing. We do want to remind you, homecoming is Sunday, and we're looking forward to having a wonderful time here on this coming Sunday. Worship service, of course, Sunday school 9, worship service 10, and then the homecoming will start at 2. Dinner will be in between, and then Monday through Thursday, we're looking forward to our annual revival. So come on out, look at everything that'll be going on online, and we're looking forward to seeing everybody that can make it. Thank you so much for the information. And the gentleman that had to leave, his mother and father came in out of town, and he wanted to spend some time with them and the grandkids. So I told him, hey, man, I understand that, and I appreciate him taking the time to come. Thank you so much once again, everybody, for all that you do to make this a wonderful event. Let us pray. Father, thank you for allowing us to come here today. We pray that the information that has been shared will be helpful, Lord, as people plan for the future as we live right now. And whatever is needed, we pray you'll hold no good thing back from us. And we thank you and appreciate you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you. You want to get that business card? Can you take a picture of that and put it online where folks can kind of see? Latron, the business card right here.